I'll just go back to title slide for those seeing this at home for a second. All the slides for this and everything else I do are out on my website, mcdwayne.com. And I work for Pantheon. We have a booth out there. I can tell you much, much more about us. We are currently branding ourselves as a website operations platform to help the team that manages your websites and builds your websites communicate better with everyone else on your team and in your world. I can tell you much more about all of that. So I have this Inception project going on. This is me from yesterday. So I'm going to do this again. If somebody could actually take a picture of me up here in front of... let's see, which one am I leaning in this one? I'm straight ahead forward on this one. Had been like leaning back and forth pretty well. Yeah, this is me giving in front of a picture of me giving a talk, in front of me picking a picture of the last talk I gave, going all the way back to the beginning of the year. Yep, every single time. In fact, I'm only wearing this shirt today for this presentation, taking it off after this. Pretty dirty. All right. Well, that's me. A little bit of silly fun just to get started, and especially after lunch, especially at the 2:30 slot on a Thursday. And now you've all just had cake, so your body's about to crash. Did anybody get like the whole personal cake? Anybody eat one of those? It's like ridiculous, but it's a good idea. Yeah, so let's start with that. Who ate the whole personal cake? Not. All right. But always curious who's in the room, who came for this talk, or for any of my talks actually. But the same thing I did yesterday. Who here considers himself a full-time developer? Awesome. Who here considers himself a full-time designer? Awesome. You should know each other, designers and developers. Who here does everything full stack from servers all the way up through that front-end design? Awesome. That's a lot of stuff. Who here is a project manager? Anybody? Of course. Who wears every hat in the building? Is there anyone else here that's something else? Like yesterday I had a lawyer.
I work at MIT and I source marketing communications, so I do help with marketing labs and stuff. Awesome.
Hopefully you can.
And we use Pantheon.
Awesome. Hopefully you'll be able to get something out of this as well today. As with my talk yesterday, I really hope to have a conversation at the last bit of this. I don't really have 40 minutes of presentation. I don't really have 35 minutes of presentation. I can stretch it out, but really I want to have a conversation with y'all. They're collectively in the room more years of experience doing this stuff. Come on in. More years of doing this stuff than I could ever have in my head in my life experiences. And I want to hear those opinions of what you think about this stuff, because everybody does it a little bit different. I don't think there's a 100% right answer to any of this stuff. So at the end, when we go to Q&A, we will definitely turn this into a conversation. But based on the name of this thing, how many people came into the room expecting to see a video that failed? No, what is wrong? Why are you failing, video? You can load the image. Let me try refreshing. And Mr. Ballmer. No, YouTube's not cooperating with me. This is not good. You've all seen this video though, right? Just developers. Everyone know what I'm talking about? All right, now I'm gonna have to find it real quick. Developers, video. Hopefully this one doesn't fail because it's not.
Developers.
This is why Windows 95 will be the greatest thing for developers ever. Is Ballmer got really sweaty in 1995 and yelled at us that that's what Windows is really all about, the developer. And if anybody came into this room thinking that I was going to do that, well, you might be right. But really I'm here to talk about the discovery process and what the important questions are in that. And yeah, not really important, but those questions are there. That was just to make you lean forward. We'll get back to those questions, actually. It's a really good list of questions. We'll get back to that. But most of my talks actually center around this central idea of aligning expectations with results. And that is the core to, well, making clients happy. Making anybody happy is saying, this is what we're going to do, and then doing the thing that you said you're going to do. which sounds super easy, except it's really hard. Because you could say, I want a yellow cake with an eye on it. And yeah, the one on the right sure is. But man, no little kid is going to be happy with that. Just like little kids, people that are buying things, people that spend money to buy a value, they get really fussy if they don't get exactly what they wanted. They will, and if it's not exactly right, you're going to have to start trying to fix what you think they want. My other talk, I do this whole thing about sandwiches and trying to guess what people are actually wanting. Today we're actually going to talk about finding out the process of how to find out what they really want. And that's what the discovery process is all about. When I first wrote this talk, I wrote it for the sales. Most of my experience in life is in sales. And Stanford University actually asked me, hey, could you modify this slightly and aim it at a project management audience? And I said, okay, but I don't know what a project is. I know what a sale is. So I had to step back. And I looked at the word project. I love etymology. I love understanding where words came from. And just in simplest terms, we are throwing something to hit a target. Which, and another way to say that is a project is something you do to hit a goal. We're doing a set of steps to hit a goal. And I know that's, why are you talking about the etymology of the word project? Because goals, if we can well define them, are the difference between success and failure. If someone says, I want a website, you are never going to win that. You can make them a website, they're never going to be happy. If they say, I want to do this project and get 20% more leads through the door, there's a goal you can hit. Because goals should be measurable. You can watch the talk I did yesterday. I drill into this a lot more. I just wanted to mention it today. We should be able to measure those results. We should be able to take whatever they tell us and turn it into a KPI, turn it into a number, and either we do that number, or we get close to that number, or we fail. And that's how goal setting typically works. Again, whole talk yesterday about it, around this idea. Also yesterday, we talked about the process of going from a lead to a qualification, or qualified lead. Is anyone here for the first time seeing this what a project funnel is, or what a lead funnel is? All right, cool. So there are a couple people in the room, blank stares from a few others. Really quick, if we're looking at this from a sales perspective, imagine I had emails from everyone in the room. You are all my leads now. You are people I can contact. I had some way to mechanically interface with that you can say yes or no to things. And if you say yes to the right things through the qualification process, I will then say you are a qualified lead. And out of that group, I will go through discovery with a portion of that. And that's what we're talking about today, how to go through that process. And at the end of that, I will have enough information to write down on a piece of paper, here's what I'm going to do, and here's how much money I'm going to charge you. That's called a proposal. We work through negotiation. Finally, I deliver what you wanted. We go on to maintenance after that, and I loop you back through to the top. And hopefully you can buy something else from me in the future. This is true of every sale you'll ever do in your entire life. From very small sales that are transactional to giant behemoth 18-month sales cycle enterprise sales that cost millions of dollars. They all follow this general process. Now sometimes it's very, very quick. A point I forgot to say yesterday. And sometimes it's completely transactional. Like, would you like to buy whatever I have in my pockets? This ticket, bus ticket.
Sure.
See that? Would you pay $1 for it?
Yes.
$1.
There you go. That is the entire process. We change money, and now the whole process is done in under 20 seconds. Kid and ice cream store is my other favorite example. Want to buy ice cream? Yes. Here's money. Here's your ice cream. That's it. But it still follows this process. They had to put out enough marketing to know that, do you want to buy this? I had to get an audience in here to ask if you wanted to buy this thing, this ticket. I actually don't think this is worth anything now. So, $1 for me. Anyway. So the process doesn't have to be as long as I'm talking about today. I am talking more about the enterprise sale today, about something that requires sign-off from teams, sign-off from stakeholders. and helping people get what they actually want. I think all of this boils down to this one statement, but you can't just have one slide and then expand on it for 40 minutes. You can. I've seen people do it. I'm just not that kind of person. But Greg Reed just nailed it with this. I have a friend, Jenny, who's always is telling me, you need a solid action plan. Whenever I tell her I want to do something, she's like, well, what's your action plan? You need a solid action plan. And it's pretty easy to write down a solid action plan if you actually know what you want to do. If you actually know what you're doing. So I think there is a methodology for that it's just inherent to our language, inherent to our culture, inherent to being human, honestly. And that is the story framework. Because we think in stories. There's a great quote from Linda Cron, who said, if opposable thumbs taught us to hold on, stories taught us what to hold on to. And every story you've ever heard in your entire life follows this general structure. There are other philosophies and story structures you can read about in the world, but they all generally follow this. My favorite example is Scooby-Doo. Every episode of Scooby-Doo is, once upon a time there was a world where you could drive around in a van in America as teenagers with a talking dog, and that was perfectly okay. And every day, these teenagers drove around in a van with a talking dog and tried to solve mysteries and right the wrongs of the world. But one day, they were at Thelma's aunt's house, and there was a ghost, and it caused great grief to her aunt. And because of that, they decided they were going to solve the mystery of the guy in the weird mask. And because of that, they set up a crazy trap, and because of that, Scooby-Doo and the gang fall into it, but eventually they capture the guy, until finally they pull off the mask, and it's just Old Man Johnson from down the road who wanted the rights to the amusement park. And ever since then, Old Man Johnson's been in jail, and Thelma's aunt has just been living her life, and they went back on the road solving mysteries. That's every episode of Scooby-Doo ever written. It's also Seinfeld, you name it. Any Gilligan's Island, they all follow the story. Luckily, this maps to something that looks something like this, which is a little bit more consumable, a little easier to grasp, I think. Where there is, I wish I had a laser pointer, where there is a base reality on this side. You can see my mouse. Yeah. There's a base reality that we start with. Once upon a time, there is this thing that we have. And then there's a future state, or an end state, where a new reality is set in. There was a change event. One day something disrupted this pattern. Once upon a time is the base reality. This is like the world where it happens in. And then there's an everyday pattern. But one day, something happens. Because of that, another series of events happen. Because of that, a whole other series of events happen. Because that story arc finishes, a whole other series of events happen. Until finally we hit a point of apex that solves the change event. And ever since then, there's a new reality. What the heck does this have to do with business? Well, once upon a time, there was a company that sold shoes online. And every day, their order system could handle about 10,000 orders. But one day, they got about 12,000 orders, and everything fell down. It caused cascade failure. And because of that, they realized, we got to rebuild this thing and make it more scalable. Because of that, they tried throwing more servers at it, and that just didn't work. And because of that, they finally just hired an outside consultant. Until finally, the outside consulting firm built them an order system that could handle 10x their current capacity. And ever since that day, Zappos has been able to handle about 100,000 orders a day. That's roughly a true story, more or less. Every project you'll ever encounter in your entire life should follow this general model. There's a base reality problem, or base reality that exists. If your client doesn't know their base reality, get out. If they can't tell you what their business does, leave. If your company is like, we want to do this project, and you should do it for us, and you're working internally, and they have no idea what the structure of the business is, I would highly encourage you to rethink some actions in your life. If we've done our job in qualification process, that won't be a concern. In the qualification process, we have to ask these things. Go back and watch the talk I did yesterday. It's about, do you have the thing figured out that you need to measure? Is what it boils down to. Do you have these other parts figured out? Do you have project management figured out? Do you have content creation figured out? If you don't, we can sell you those things, but that's not the project you're engaging in. Once we get to discovery, they should know this very well, and you should know they know this. They should also know this endpoint of ever since then. Ever since that day, ever since this change event happened. That's the future state they're trying to get to. They should know this. So right now you get about 20 leads a month. We would like to get 40 leads a month. That's a future state. That's a beautiful future state. Something changed in their world that made them unhappy with this current state. Could be a major event happened. Could be that somebody internally said, we need 40 more leads a month. But there's some reason that they went and consulted you. Now this kind of gets confusing a little bit because story spines are recursive. Every point on a story spine is into itself an entire story. It's also completely expansive. The story spines can be very short. They can have a couple points. They can have 50 points. So by the time they get to you as a consultant, they might be here, but they also might be right here. In Zappos, they don't even hire a consultant until the second to last step in the story. In my version of it anyway. So we come in a lot of times into situations and we're like, okay, you need me to solve this thing, I'm going to solve this thing, and your story starts and ends with you delivering a product. What I'm suggesting is that the discovery process, the real discovery process, is taking a huge step back and helping paint this story from their perspective. Because if you can understand their perspective, you can just deliver a lot better product, a lot better results. I've spent a lot of time on this slide. I'm going to move on now. I give a whole other talk about this, about storytelling architecture. You can find it on my blog or on my website. But that's underlying everything I'm about to talk about. This isn't even the meat of what I'm trying to get to today. The process to get to this relies on questions. And that is what the discovery process is. During the first part, lead generation is all about you. I can do this thing. I need your email address so I can talk to you. The qualification process is still mostly about you. Hey, give me these answers, Mr. Customer, so I can tell if I can do your project or not. Hey, Mrs. Customer, I need to know these things so my project and my process will work correctly. The discovery process is not. The discovery process is all about them. Getting them to open up and tell you everything they know about everything they know. So here's this wonderful list of questions that we'll get back to. We're going to talk about ground rules and how the discovery process works. And again, this is learned from years of getting this beat into my head from managers and from learning in first person. Face-to-face is always best to do a discovery process. If you're talking to anyone about anything and you're trying to actually capture information, face-to-face is super important. Quick object lesson on this. Everybody hold their hand up in a OK symbol or a sign or whatever you feel comfortable holding your hand up like that. That's not everybody. Okay. And now put your hand on your forehead. How many people stuttered at least a little bit and were like, what? Yeah. Communication is only like 7% of the actual words you understand. We are evolved from a point of pre-language. Part of the reason we are so expressive as people, what we think of as human, is we have more fine twitch motor fiber in our face than any other creature on Earth. Think about turtles. They can only move from their neck. Their faces never change. Birds aren't much better. Think of elephants, way more expressive, but not nearly as expressive as the human face. There's whole psychological theories around this. I like the one from Sylvan S. Tompkins, affect imagery consciousness theory. But human beings can only do so many things with their face. So, knowing nothing else than we know right now, how is this meeting going? Anyone?
Depends on which side of the table you are.
I didn't hear.
Depends on which side of the table you are.
That's super intuitive, and that's true. How's it going for her?
Great.
How's it going for him? How do we know that? Did we hear a single word come out of their mouths? Do we hear any sound at all? Are we on the phone with them? All right, now everybody close your eyes, because I don't have another slide for this. Close your eyes and pretend I'm switching slides now. How's this meeting going? Based on the exact same amount of information.
I don't know.
Exactly. When you send an email to do discovery, you're not doing discovery. You're on the phone, you're doing the best you can given the technology that might be available. But we live in the world of Zoom. We live in the world of GoToMeeting. We live in the world of GoToWebinar and a zillion other projects. Some of them open source that you can use to teleconference reliably. Use those tools. Face-to-face is always best. In the room is the best. If someone is talking about something and they get really animated and they're excited about it, that's good. If it becomes to an important part of discovery and they just flatly don't care, and it's plain on their face they don't care, they really don't care. Those are important points to know. Asking open-ended questions is super important to this process because you don't want to ask them yes and no questions because they can just say no or yes. Ask them things that they have to open up on. Now, the really good news here is this is simple. There's only 6 ways to start an open-ended question. Anybody want to guess what those are? I know it's in the afternoon on Friday, Thursday, whatever day it is.
Who, what, when, where, why, how.
That's it. That is super easy. If your question on your checklist, the questions you're writing down, don't start with one of these words or a close approximation or conjunction of them, rethink that. Real world example. The first one is a question I used to ask all the time. Are you the person who's going to sign off on this? No. All right, and then who needs to sign off on it? That happened to me so many times that I eventually just learned to ask, who signs off on this? Oh, it's you? Great, that's awesome. Carl Sagan always says, if you could save a step, save a step. Let's cut out the unnecessary words and language. It also gives them a chance to interject what they're really thinking. So if you say, do you want this justified left or right? You've given them 2 options, and if they think both of those are terrible, they're going to start getting a bad impression of what's going on. It's like, hey, how do you imagine this looks on the page? Or where do you imagine seeing these pictures? Wow, I didn't think we're going to put pictures here at all. I think that'd be a bad idea. Like, oh, okay, that's good to know. Very different results. I think the why is the most important part of any conversation. If we don't care about the why, we'll never care about the what, or the who, or the when, or any of that stuff. It's not hard to ask why. It's counterintuitive to continually ask why. There's a great article out there, I forget who wrote it, but it's a book. It's called The 5 Whys. If anybody knows or can Google that, that'd be awesome. Forgetting off the top of my head right now. But it's true, you have to ask why at least 5 times to get to a real actual reason. And if you get to a couple whys and they're just like, you know what, doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter. But if you ask a bunch of why questions and they reveal something extremely personal, wow, this is important to them. What I mean is, if you're ever in a project or in a discovery phase for something and say, why are we doing this? Because my boss said I had to. But why are we really doing this? Because it's good for the company. My boss said I had to. Why are we really doing this? Because my boss told me to do it. Yeah, their motivation to do that is their boss told them to do it. Just go talk to their boss, if you can. But if that same person is like, why is this important? Because I want my kid to go to a better college. And if we don't do this project, I'm not sure we're going to. We got to get 20% more leads or he's going to a state school. Wow. That is a motivated individual. That's a person that will do what it takes because they have something on the line. You'll probably not get to that personal level. That's only happened to me a few times in my whole life. But the closer you can get to a personal reason, and the only way you're going to get there is by asking why repeatedly, the closer you get to a personal reason, the more motivated they are. The clearer it is that this is something they actually want to do. Probably the most important of all of these rules, I don't lead with it, I've thought about leading with it, is it's all about listening. If you're talking more than 25% of the time, that's a good rough figure to have in your head. If you're talking more than 25% of the time, stop. That's no longer discovery. You're selling. It is super, super, super tempting to start talking about solutions as soon as you hear a problem. But make sure you completely understand the picture of what's going on and the actual problem before you start talking. And the only way to do that is continually asking questions until they're out of things to say and you're completely out of questions to ask. This process could take a single phone call. This process could take 6 months. Discovery has no limitation in the time it takes. It's more important that you're finding out more than you're saying. Of course, you're going to have to answer questions along the way. They're going to have questions for you. 25% of the time is about a good number to aim at for all that. And whatever you do not talk about yourself during discovery, because that's boring. There was time to talk about you when you were qualifying. There was time to talk to you about lead generation. And there's going to be a ton of time to talk about you when the proposal comes up. Setting up expectations with clients. If I was to start suddenly clapping my hands every 3 seconds for no reason, that's kind of weird. And you would be like, why is he clapping? If I would say, hey, for the next 15 seconds, I'm going to clap my hands every 3 seconds to prove a point, well, at least you know what I'm doing. Maybe don't understand everything I'm doing, why, but if you explain what we're about to do, discovery process is not an intuitive process. It seems like it should be. It seems like it should be intuitive, but the idea of sitting on the other side of a table and asking someone a bunch of questions, not giving a lot of answers, and digging into why on things, that feels weird to do. The first time you do it, you'll be like, that was interesting. However, if you're on the other side of the table, that can feel threatening. If they don't expect it, if you're like, I thought this call was about you going to solve my problems, not you grilling me about everything I've done wrong for the last 15 years of my life, which is sometimes what it feels like when you're like, well, what's wrong with your business? Like, what are you actually trying to solve with your business? People take things very personally. I love this because when I was originally building this deck, I Googled, a guide showing the way. And if I ever go to Gettysburg, I'm going to take this tour from John Krebs because I know exactly what to expect. I know exactly where we're going to walk. I hope those lawnmowers are still there. I feel very comfortable knowing that if I ever go to Gettysburg, I know exactly what path to walk thanks to this guide from GettysburgDaily.com. That's how comfortable you want your clients to feel like, oh, we're going to go into discovery phase. I know exactly what that means now, and I'm looking forward to it. Hand in hand with that is transparency. Not just telling them, here's what you're going to expect, but telling them why we need it to happen. Say, I can't do my job. I cannot deliver you anything that you'll be happy with at all until I find these things out. I'm going to do my best to be transparent through the process. People only buy things that they value, and they will, if at all possible, buy those things from people they trust. I will buy things from people I don't trust very rarely. I don't really trust Walmart, so I don't shop there. I don't really super trust Amazon, but I got to buy something somewhere, I do trust my local comic book shop. I do trust the farmers market people that I've been buying produce from for the last few years. I like buying from them. It feels good to buy from them. There's a transparency to what they do. The farmers market, I could go to their farm if I really wanted to. I know exactly who these people are. Amazon's a big conglomerate, and I'm not super comfortable with. Walmart, I'm pretty sure I know what they are, and I'm not transparent at all. Anyway, being transparent with why you do what you're doing and what you're doing, because they will ask along the way, why are we doing this? Why do you need to know that? Tell them you need to know it. And giving them freedoms. We are built on freedom. Drupal is. Open source is. Who here knows the 4 freedoms by heart? Of the GPL. Stallman. We're in where he used to live. He used to live in his office. By legend. Help people. Awesome. Now I got to recite them. But we're built on the idea of this fundamental freedom to what we're doing with software. Let's extend that. Let's extend that in every business line we have. That you have a bunch of freedoms. One of the scariest things in a discovery process, once people agree to enter into a proper discovery process, is they're not going to know the answer. You got to let them know up front, like, hey, you're going to probably not know the answer to everything. That's cool. We'll figure it out. You don't got to know. I don't know is a perfectly valid answer. It's cool to talk about your personal mistakes. If it's not personal, that's cool, but whatever. Freedom of approach is super important, especially if you're dealing with a bunch of stakeholders. Because it's not an approach from you. Obviously, they're not scared of a contractor who's going to say something mean. But if you're interviewing 6 people that are on a committee individually about what this project really means to them, hey, I am never going to tell the rest of the committee anything that you accidentally share. Anything that's beyond what was already shared in the public meeting. It's never going to come back to you. You got that trust with me. And then live up to that. If they never get reproached from working with you, they're going to trust you a lot more. And the last one is super important, the freedom to dream. That's what discovery at its heart is really, does best. My favorite question ever in any discovery process is, all right, if I gave you a magic wand and you could wave it, what would happen? Like, what's the outcome you want? There's just a magic wand. Let's not think about price. Let's not think about any other reality. Just here's magic. What happens? I was always shocked by the people that would sit back and kind of go, no one's ever offered me that before. No one's ever even I've never thought about that. Because they've been thinking instead this confines of a box. There's another quote from Candace Burbig, I forget her pronounce her last name. It's on my other slide deck. We're not designing a chair, we're designing a human suspension system. If someone came into the meeting thinking, you can do X, Y, and Z, and I think we can do this within the confines of that, and they don't tell you what they really want, they might want something completely different. Something that you don't even offer. Something you could build that would actually solve the real problem, but they don't even know how to ask because they're seeing it from the confine of a box. Let them dream big. If they dream super big and you can write that down and sell that to them, they will pay a lot of money for that. But at the end of the day, the whole point of discovery is you should have every question answered from your side to be able to write them a proposal. I personally think this comes down to checklists. I've used checklists a lot in my life. Not actually checking boxes, but lists of questions. I'm showing an airline pilot because the most comforting line that's said to me on an airplane ever is, flight attendants, stand by for all call and disarm the doors. Some version of that. Because that means we landed safely and we're at the point where they can open the door to the jet bridge and I can get off the plane. That means everything else in the checklist worked. Otherwise we wouldn't have gotten there. We probably wouldn't have even taken off. And that's where these questions come back in. I found this, and there's the link at the bottom if you really want to look at them, by Googling project management questions. And just found a random list. Point here is any list of questions work, as long as they work for you. These aren't bad. These aren't bad questions at all. If you want to take them, there's the link. But the process of how we go through that discovery process and get those questions answered, that is far more important than the actual questions themselves. That's the point we're supposed to clap with Jeff. I know, it's 3 o'clock on a Thursday. Everybody's tired. And I talked longer than I meant to. Sorry about that. I got caught up in the story part. So, this is the point where I'd like to have kind of an open conversation with you all for the next 10, 15 minutes or so. So I'll start if anybody has a question, and then we'll turn it into a conversation. All right, Becca.
I have a question. Okay, a little bit of a short backstory first. Just online, talking with people in a chat type of thing or on a Twitter thing, and I'm part of a web development cooperative where it's not a hierarchy. We don't have a boss, and we don't have a lot of constraints that a corporation would have. And there was a woman on there complaining about a new client she had, and she felt it didn't fit her lifestyle or
Mhm.
something. And we got into a little discussion about how, and it turned out she didn't want to mix her business with her lifestyle things and felt she had to hide her lifestyle from her clients. And I was trying to explain to her how, as a cooperative, we're very transparent. And we do get to that personal level with our clients as quickly as possible, because that really determines your longevity of your relationship. And she was complaining that she had a lot of short-term clients and turnover and stuff, and was, like at the end of a cycle, she was worried about where she'd get her next cycle. She was a freelancer. And I was trying to tell her, well, open up a bit and make personal connections with these clients. First, stop calling them clients, and work them into your business life. And she freaked out. She was like, I could never do that. I would never even imagine doing that, getting a personal talk with a client. And it's like, oh my God, this is like her life is going down, and she's not even looking at opening up. How would you suggest that someone could entertain the notion that this would make it better for them? Because we have such great close relationships with the people we build websites with, and we train them and all kinds of things. So it gets very, so now some of them, they stay at our house when they come to Boston.
Sure.
We do dinners. If we're going to a town they're in, even if we're not working with them, they'll call them and say, hey, meet us for dinner in St. Louis. So it's a wonderful, wonderful world to operate in, and its longevity of the relationship. How would you break that open in a conversation with someone who's like hyper afraid, being discovered?
This is going to sound cop-out, but
No.
I would try to find out why she's afraid. Like, discovery of, I can't answer that question, I don't think, more appropriately than that, honestly. Because if it's this particular client she doesn't want to open up to, find another client.
She was like afraid of they would find out her politics, and they would be against her politics, or would fire her. So as soon as we let our politics be known, we got more business.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's
more business by letting it out than by trying to remain behind a wall or a suit or something.
Other than trying to find out more of what she's actually afraid of and why we're actually afraid, I wouldn't even begin to know that. That was where I'd start that conversation. What are you actually afraid of? And if it's a legitimate fear of I'm in the witness protection program and I can't be publicly known on a contract by my real name, that's a very different situation than I'm afraid people will find out I voted for Bernie, which isn't a thing to be ashamed of at all in anyone's opinion, I don't think. It's America, you get a vote. Anyone else have thoughts on that? I'm very curious to what Collective Room thinks on that.
Reminds me of Seinfeld with George from His Worlds Are Gonna Collide.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Show her that episode of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have a light bulb moment for her. Anybody else have thoughts on that? I'm curious. Do they collectively all have to have experience in this?
Sounds like she might have opened up in the past, but been criticized or made fun of, so she doesn't want to open herself up again in any way.
This is turning into a relationship advice show, but
I mean, I keep a certain amount of separation of church and state because I have a lot of clients who are sort of local to me, and I still need to have a professional relationship with them. So, I'm not going to have you over my house for coffee, but if you want to go to the coffee shop, that's great.
Yeah.
So I think it's about having a line where you can still be a human being with them, but you don't have to be, babysitting my kids on Thursday night. Find a line in the sand that you're comfortable with, but don't let it be so far out there that you seem like you're a robot and you're not. That's what it was. But you have to be completely transparent, because I do, certainly in the current political climate, I live in a family torn asunder by it myself, the political climate does make it difficult. And with some of my clients, I have noticed tension just even within their own companies, and we'll have a meeting and it's people are not getting along. So sometimes things have to be put aside. Sometimes look, that's not about our business, that's, your personal opinion, it's America, freedom of speech, we can all vote the way we want, but find the line that you're comfortable with, or she's comfortable with, and just, go with that.
one last quick point on that, and then we'll move on to other questions. A friend in the WordPress world, Adam Silver, who really talks about coming at freelance and small agency life as a place of abundance versus a place of scarcity.
Yeah.
It sounds like she's really coming from a place of scarcity. If she loses this one, there's not going to be a next one.
Yes.
Reminder, there are 168 million businesses in the world that don't have websites.
Yes.
That's a real fact. All right. Other questions, other topics? I don't know who had their hand up. Let's just default to you and then go this way because I'm reading that one.
So you go through your discovery process,
Mm-hmm.
you come to an agreement, you deliver your product, and you get you built what? I actually just got an email about that during this presentation.
Okay. One disclaimer. This is not a panacea that will fix every problem you have in the universe. But it should help eliminate that a little bit if the proposal is feeding back exactly what they told you they wanted. And if you're describing in your proposals, this is why we're building this, because you told me you wanted this, and this is going to solve this problem. And does the thing that you've delivered get them metrically closer to the metric they want to hit? If the answer to that, if their email is like, you built me what? I don't like the color scheme. And you can say, but that color scheme gets 20% more rate, 20% more conversions, and that's what you paid me to do. That's a solid answer. They can dislike their website all they want, but if it's getting them leads, is making them money, and they fire you for they didn't like it, that's on them. That's just a bad client. Not to say you have a bad client there, I'm just saying in general. Like if they can't agree to these are the metrics, and that's why KPIs and metrics are super important. If they can't say this is like objectively we failed or passed, then you're probably going to objectively fail more than you win. Or you're subjectively fail more than you'll ever win. If you can't say, here's the thing you told me we need to do, here's what we're measuring, let's do that. But again, some clients are just never going to be happy. They're going to say, I didn't say that. And you can have a voice recording of them saying that, but still disagree with you that they said that. That's just true.
So, in the process, where does the discovery fall, I guess?
Oh.
Are you already contracted
Oh.
to do the work?
This is the slide.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the qualification process says, do you have a budget, authority, need, and time frame on this thing at a minimum? Out of that qualified lead, do you want to go through a discovery process with those people? If you do, and they engage with you on a discovery process, that is the start of, in some people's opinion, the formal project. In other people's opinion, like mine, the project doesn't start until you get a signed contract. The discovery before that can be a separate project, paid or unpaid. In fact, that's one of the questions I had for the room around paid discovery. We'll get back to that in a second. But what I learned very hard, in the hard way, was once you've passed one of these thresholds, once we're in discovery, we're in discovery. We can't go back to qualification. If I've misqualified you, that's on me. Maybe we just need to walk away. Maybe we need to go back to qualification and stop discovery altogether. But once we're in proposal, once I have a piece of paper in front of you, we can fine tune it. But if I have X, Y, and Z on the paper, and he's like, but where's M? You're like, we never talked about M. Well, let's go back and do a whole other round of discovery on that. It goes in an order for a reason. You can't give a proposal until you completely understand what they want to do and what you can do for them, and that requires the discovery phase. So that's the lead order.
How often do you, I guess, get past that and realize that maybe what, I guess, your implementation or idea is not what they perceived they, I guess, wanted?
How often does the proposal differ from what they actually want?
Yeah.
Hopefully, over time, that number of times reduces greatly as you go through the process of discovery more and more often. Again, discovery could take a single call. Discovery could take 6 months of conversation where you're doing way more listening than you're talking, and they keep saying, where's that proposal to do this thing? And you saying, I don't understand what you want to do fully. I don't understand what I can even deliver to you. Let's get that re-summed up, and then we can move on to the next step. I know you want to pay me, but let's figure out what you're going to pay me for so you'll be happy with it. I did not make this up. This is pretty well-established sales and project methodology out there. Other thoughts on? Yeah.
Sort of a follow-up question on that is
Sure.
how much technical feasibility are you incorporating into the discovery process? Where,
Technical feasibility.
yeah, I mean, where your client may have some ideas, and you may not, because for practice we end up doing that. My company, we find that we're doing discovery in the middle of delivery. Where,
Yeah.
hey, that API didn't support what we were thinking about. We thought it did, but we never worked with that API before.
Yeah.
So sorry. How do you incorporate that? Is that common?
I've never run into that. Mostly because I've worked mostly in the sales capacity, and part of the discovery is doing due diligence behind the scenes and saying, hey, they said they wanted this. Again, discovery is about them asking, hey, what do you want? Then going back to engineering and saying, hey, can we do this? How can we pull this off? Because you should be getting like quotes from internal constantly, and there's a feedback loop. Like, you're not doing this on an island by yourself, and then at the end of the day you gave that proposal to internally to your company. Unless you're a one-person show, like, you should be consulting with your team constantly through this process. If it's after one phone call, that's great, and they say, yeah, let's do it. Slap up a one-page landing page with a link. Great. But if it's a 6-month process, you better have recurring meetings with the rest of the team and say, this is what they want. Can we do that? Yeah or no? Through the discovery process, you can come back and say, look, if it's not technically feasible to pull this off under your budget, what else do you want? Much better conversation to learn quickly as you can, as soon as they want to do a thing. So I've been very, very, very fortunate to work with product companies, hosting companies over the years, where it's just a free flow of information internally, and I can constantly go back and forth. So I would encourage you to open up those lines of dialogue sooner than later and get your sales team to start doing it. Because the worst thing a salesperson can do to anybody on their team is throw something over the fence blindly. Say, yeah, I promised them this. That's a bad sales rep. That's just a bad sales rep. If they're pinging you on Slack and saying, hey, technically, how does this even work? That's a great sales rep. They're trying to figure out the process as they go along. But that's the best advice I got on it. Other thoughts on any of this stuff? Oh, she had a hand.
How do you know when you're done with the discovery phase?
Because you got all your questions answered. That sounds like too simple of a solution, but when you're out of things to ask, when you're completely out of, there's no other data I could possibly need to write a proposal and deliver the project, you're done. If we go back to buying this transit card earlier, as soon as you said, yes, I have $1 and I want to buy it, we were done. That's the entire discovery process, because that's all I needed to know for that transaction to happen. If I'm selling you an enterprise management, our e-commerce system, oh man, that discovery process is going to take a while, because what do you mean by e-commerce? Like, let's start by defining terms and go from there. And that question list will evolve. I'm not saying you have a list of questions you go in with and that's the only thing, but once you're out of like, all right, this all makes sense, I can take this and turn this into a PDF that you can sign, then you're done. There's no other formal definition that I know of.
It's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
And as you were saying about whether you should charge for your time in discovery, we found it useful to do like a free 30-minute type of intake discovery. And then if the contract is very complicated, we let them know we will need to bill you for this because it's going to be several hours talking with your whole team about what you want, so that it's not just overlooked. So maybe we do like a 2-tier discovery at times.
So quick, I'm sorry I don't have time for more questions to dig in. I'm happy to talk to anybody else out in the hallway and the rest of the day and at the party tonight and then karaoke tonight after that. But I'm just curious, who here does do a paid discovery phase and what they do? Look around, everybody look around. For those of you who don't, this is a really good conversation to have with these people.
Yep.
Like, why do you do it that way? And for those of you who don't do it, maybe you have valid reasons in your system that people that are charging for discovery could learn from as well. So I encourage you to have that conversation. But thank you very much. I'm way out of time.